As a lot of people already know, the fourth installment in the successful Friday the 13th franchise was indeed called The Final Chapter, so it was intended to be the last one, and had it been, it would have been a great way to end the story. Don't get me wrong, I like the sequels that came afterwards, but director Joseph Zito made a strong horror film that matches the original if not in tone, then definitely in gore. One of the best things about Part 4 was that they got Tom Savini back, so the creative effects that were seen in Sean Cunningham's original are back in season. I won't lie, this one's as routine as ever. A group of kids settle into Crystal Lake for a summer vacation, while Jason escapes from the local hospital and guts a trail back home. He's more brutal than before, and apparently more pissed off. I guess there's always going to be new meat for the grinder. However, the cast is more realistic this time around. Yeah, there's a little bit of that pretentious melodrama, but they're high school kids this time, so they're a little easier to relate to. They also had fun with this one, incorporating a pair of twins that are pretty easy on the eyes. And best of all, you've got a young Corey Feldman and a young Crispin Glover, both who went on to become big stars, for a short period of time. Part 4 introduces us to Tommy Jarvis, who lives in the woods with his mom and sister. This is the first film in the franchise to incorporate a family unit, so it makes the stakes that much higher. Tommy is simply a fun-going youth who loves to see things kids shouldn't see. A great analogy because, again, these movies were all about giving the younger audience a display of carnage that was a little risque at the time. Jason is played by Ted White, and while he does a great job donning the character, there's a little inconsistency when compared to the past actors. It works to the film's favor because in this movie he's a lot more aggressive, and he doesn't just run, he runs fast. This is a contrast to the lurking, creeping Jason we saw in previous installments. It works, but it's never really explained. But that's okay, because this is the strongest portrayal of the character within the first 4 movies. Things get routine. After all, there's no point in being pretentious. It is just another paint-by-the-numbers slasher, and aside from having a fresh new cast of Butcher, it doesn't do anything new. It is the first film since the original to take place on Crystal Lake, although once again, for those who don't pay attention to detail, you wouldn't notice, because they all take place in the woods. Once again, the ending makes it all worthwhile. Tommy, in trying to protect his family, shaves his head and tries to fool Jason into thinking it's him as a kid. It's similar to how Ginny tries dealing with Jason in Part 2. It's strange, because these methods always seem to get the best of him, and yet we never again see anyone attempt it. From here on out, the protagonists try using brute force to take him down, which never works because the bastard simply won't die. But anyway, Tommy puts on quite a show, ending the movie with a creepy feeling that maybe he's going to become the next killer. It's an interesting notion, and one that never came to be. Tommy Jarvis is the only character in the whole franchise to be featured in more than one Jason film, 3 to be exact, and actually survive. That's saying something. Because of that, the character has become one of great interest to passionate Jason fans. One could only hope that the two eventually duke it out again in the future.
But the way I would, wish it to be, if I could go back and do it again or whatever, is that we would kind of skip over 6, 7, 8, 9, and kind of pick up the plot line right after 5, and have me come back as the character, as Tommy Jarvis, and do it grown up, and have that kind of final confrontation. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oddly enough, a lot of people remember Feldman for doing this movie, probably because it stands out like a sore thumb on his resume, a darkened smudge next to Goonies, Gremlins, and Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys. But I have to say, considering how his later career turned out, this is definitely one of his best.